This podcast is brought to you by the e-Governance Academy. Tune in next time.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Digital Government Podcast with your usual host, Federico Plantera. I'm a journalist, sociologist, and researcher sitting today with Katrin Baga, who is the head of global communication at the e-Residency program of Estonia. Katrin, very excited to talk about this topic today. I'm very excited to have you here with me.
Thank you, Federico, for inviting. Very happy to talk to you about e-residency. That is also a great personal passion for me, not only the work that I do.
I would say that we already kind of match in that sense, because I also have like a not even deep-seated, just like an interest actually in the e-residency program and in seeing as well, basically at what point it stands, like how it is positioned at the moment after 10 years of life. Little side note that is a personal note. 10 years ago was exactly also the first time that I have lived in Estonia. So I could say that actually I've been following the birth and the growth of this little child of the Estonian government that was a child, the residency program, and now has reached, in any case, a certain maturity stage. So let's talk exactly about that, meaning the e-residency program is like celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. But how would you describe then the evolution, let's say, that it had from the initial concept? Because I remember there were certain keywords, certain purposes, certain aims and goals, to then its current state.
Yes, when e-residency program started, and you were actually present in Estonia, I believe, at the time. Me, no. I was living in London, and actually, when I heard that the e-residency, everybody was talking about the e-residency being launched back at the time, all the international media as well, then I got very excited because I had the first-hand experience what it meant to kind of grow up in a digitally transformed society. I saw the whole transformation, which has taken like 25 years now, of our public services, becoming digital, so everything is digital today. So seeing this actually offered to non-residents, because when I moved away from Estonia as a journalist back in 2007, then it was like a big, kind of a big trauma for me, because I didn't know that all the other countries back at the time, Belgium, for example, and later UK, were so paper-based still. And it was a reality check. I realized that how far we have gone as Estonians. And I think to come up with an idea back then, the founders of e-residency in 2014, they still had quite a hard time explaining to all Estonian stakeholders, ministries, public servants, why this project is necessary.
Yeah.
Because everybody was like me, if you don't go to live abroad, you don't know what the life is like in Germany, in Belgium, in, I don't know, Spain, in other countries that haven't gone through this kind of a digital transformation. In any case, e-residency, as you know, was a digital ID, which was more or less the same thing as Estonians were already using widely, and it was introduced for foreigners in December 2014. But the customer journey wasn't really like fully developed back then, so you still had to apply for e-residency, come to Estonia, go through the whole process of getting the identification document, give your fingerprints and stuff in actual Estonian police and border guard. So today the whole journey is remote, is online, and you can collect your digital ID in any Estonian embassy around the world. We have the most of embassies, obviously, in Europe. But basically, you can collect your digital ID. You don't need to come to Estonia for any step of the process, which is the important development that was made in 2016-17. So up until then, it was still 2 years of selling e-residency and actually drafting the whole user journey. So it would be with a maximum time saving. It would be online and easy to do. And from 2017, we are actually talking about e-residency as it is today. But since the program started as government startup, the first ever government startup, then obviously the start was very messy. It was like a constant process to look for exactly who e-residency is relevant for and how exactly it's going to benefit Estonia. This wasn't very clear at the beginning. The hopes were big. It was kind of a cultural project as well as economic project, but it wasn't clear how is it going to work out in long term.
I love the fact that you're pointing out these two dimensions, let's say, that are together with the e-residency program. One, this like more cultural dimension. First of all, because exactly, I totally understand the fact that if it already felt like in Estonia back then, you had to explain, let's say, the policy or like where the policy is coming from, where the program is coming from, to Estonian policymakers and Estonian government agencies and employees, then exactly, I can only imagine that that would prove to be even harder, let's say, outside of the borders of a place that is already kind of a digital nation and that already was hailed, let's say, as a digital nation for, I would say, 3-4 years, because I remember in any case that Estonia was as present as it was in the past couple of years, actually, in the public discourse in general at the global level with governments and digital policies. But then exactly then there came also this other aspect of the economic impact. So let's get into that. What basically has been the economic impact, and I would say as well the cultural one, maybe like to another extent, but mainly and chiefly, what has been basically the economic return and impact for Estonia and the residency program from having a program like this?
Mhm. So we have two KPIs as a program. We calculate the number of e-residents and e-residence companies. E-residents essentially with their digital ID. What's the main purpose of having this digital ID that they apply for is to have a possibility to create an EU company in Estonia. That is a normal Estonian company. It's a limited company. It's not like the company that foreigner owns. It's like any other Estonian owned company as well. You create the company, you can create it online, and you can run it completely online. From Spain, from Bali, from I don't know, Austria, wherever you are. And it's completely paperless company with a minimum bureaucracy. Like you have no hassle. The communication with the government is digital. Everything you sign off digitally, very securely. Estonian digital ID has the highest security standard according to EIDAS. And so all the process of being an entrepreneur in European Union market is super smooth, without any bureaucracy, very cost effective, and with minimum administrative burden. So the value offer is very clear to anybody who wants to become a remote entrepreneur and find the best place to establish business in. So we do calculate the companies that e-residents have founded in Estonia. It's not mandatory thing to do, as well as Estonia is not e-residency is not a mandatory tax residency necessarily. You still need to follow the international tax regulation based on what kind of company you have, where you live, how you operate, where your clients are. So I'm explaining you all of this so you would understand that these are all the benefits that the Estonian economic environment and the entrepreneurial ecosystem has anyway. Now we opened it up for the foreigners through e-residency, and it has like two purposes. First of all, to get more talent into our economy. So everybody who from outside of Estonia who chooses to create the company and do it in this way through e-residency is going to be part of the talent pool and entrepreneurial kind of ecosystem in Estonia, and the e-residents bring in a lot of knowledge. So today, not everybody has created the company. We have about 120,000 e-residents from 180 countries, 180 different nationalities. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they have created over 30,000 companies. So it's basically
Wow.
annually, we calculate that 20% of all the new companies created in Estonia are created by e-residents. What is now an interesting aspect, if we are talking about talent and really Estonia as a, first of all, like it's sometimes called European Silicon Valley, very, very diverse and active startup ecosystem, and also a digitally very advanced society, is that 38% of Estonian startup founders and startup co-founders and people who are basically 38% of Estonian startup ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
is very closely connected to e-residents. They are either heading these companies, or they are founders, or they are,
In the management board in general,
yes,
no?
they are co-founders. So they are basically involved. Today, e-residents have been involved in creating 38% of Estonian startups. So you can imagine, with such a small country, the people, who find us, who bring in, their expertise, their digital knowledge, previous experiences, their networks, is really super good. I mean, this is like kind of a secondary aspect to this. Now, when we are talking about how we calculate the value for Estonian economy, direct economic value, then this actually is very conservative how we calculate it. This is for mainly for the reason that we don't know why the company founders come to Estonia, because we have also Nordic banks, Nordic telecom companies. So we really want to make sure that people come to Estonia because of e-residency. And that's why we only look at the companies who have the founders who have applied for e-residency, got e-residency, and founded a company within 90 days afterwards. So we look at this narrow, narrow group.
But you basically use that as a proxy. No, you use that. You decide to narrow down that metric so much in terms of sampling, because that's a proxy that works for someone who gets to know about the program, because it starts with a real need and wants to pursue that need once they get access to doing it.
Exactly. This is how we also explain it to our stakeholders, and this is stakeholders' request. And when we are talking about stakeholders, we are talking about government and ministries, right? So this is the request. So they could see, and we could see exactly who has come to Estonian economic kind of system purely through e-residency, and. And these people create the companies, and then they start to pay taxes, hopefully, because Estonia has very competitive tax system. So when we calculate the direct economic impact, it's today, let's say, 10 times more than the government puts in the money for having e-residency. So actually, our return on investment as a program is 10.
So budget to revenue, we are at 10x basically.
Yes, yes. And included in this direct economic impact are the taxes that e-residence companies pay, not personal taxes, companies pay, and also the state fees. The state fees are very small, that they pay for getting the card and registering a company. It costs 265 euros to register a company, limited company in Estonia. So this is about 5% of all the direct economic benefits.
For how long have you been now working for the e-residency program?
5.5 years. So a little bit more than the history of e-residency, a little bit more than
A
half
little
of
bit
it.
more than half of the history of
Yeah.
e-residency. But actually, I was asking because since you mentioned the cultural point inside Estonia, let's talk instead about a cultural point outside of Estonia that I think is connected to e-residency. Because you saw basically the e-residency program go through different global events that have happened and that definitely have changed the way that workforce, but as well entrepreneurs operate in general, or like also the type of markets that they aim for. And what I mean is that we actually went through about 2 years of pandemic and restrictions, of having to stay at home, keep safe, keep away, let's say, in general, from places. And so my question to you would be, have you seen also, or like, how has e-residency, let's say, approached as well this sort of like cultural shift in terms of work and ways of working that has gone more toward the direction of remote work, of location independence? Have you seen any change in that sense in terms of the pool of people that get into e-residency or that are interested in it in that sense?
Yes, this is another thing, maybe connecting, first of all, I would say connecting to your previous question, even more than money, what matters for Estonia is a small, very small society, or also like because of our geographical location, we are in between Russia and Western Europe. And, today this is an important, thing to keep in mind. So our economic resilience and kind of political resilience as a sovereign country, it depends a lot on our economic ties and how important we are in Europe as a player and what we can give back. So I think in Estonia's position as a digital, as a kind of testing pool for digitalization, and the fact that we are the most digitalized society in the world is very important. I mean, this makes us feel more secure, and the fact that we are known as such, this is super important as well. So e-residency, what e-residency gives back, and which is actually a little bit hard to measure in euros or dollars or
In
money, is
quantifiable
actually
terms.
the value of the soft power that we have in the world thanks to e-residency. Because literally what e-residency digital ID is, it's giving a very understandable user experience, what it means to interact with a digital government and digital society, what it means to belong to the digital society, how easy, how fantastic, how smooth it is. So we have been have measured media like all the online earned media articles, and we have got the advertising equivalent value over the first 6 years of e-residency's existence was already 380 million euros, right? And we are talking about not content marketing, not advertising. We are talking about purely the value of journalists like you writing in all the known newspapers about Estonia and e-residency, and really like cementing this understanding across the world that we know what we are doing and we have something relevant to give to the other countries, some kind of new way of thinking and new experience.
We're going exactly in that direction, because I will simply bridge the link between what e-residency gives to countries and what e-residency gives to people, like to individuals, because there has been a shift in that sense. So people like have increasingly thought of location independent services or program as the fitting solution, let's say, to change their ways of working. So my question was exactly if, let's call it digital nomadism, let's call it digital entrepreneurship, or let's call it global entrepreneurship, let's say. But how, for example, have you seen that there has been a change or like a shift, let's say, in adoption, usage of e-residency, for example, from the pandemic onward?
From this, yeah. I mean, at the beginning, very start of the e-residency, there were many early adopters who weren't necessarily applying for e-residency for entrepreneurship or for creating the company. They just wanted to know what it is. It was like a very cool new thing, and and let's say that we had a lot of early adopters who were journalists, thought leaders, different influencers in this kind of field who were just very much embracing future trends and were curious.
Fun
Then,
fact, one of them was my father. the
okay,
first
that's
year,
great.
the first year, fun, like really just as a fan, like just to look into the thing and say, hey, let's see what's up. And then he just got the residency from south of Italy.
Exactly. Like people like your dad, we had fans signing up for e-residency out of curiosity. Then the next wave were the people who were because the digital nomadism started to kind of develop. It was something sexy. The phrase was sexy. I'm a digital nomad, and it started to develop. And e-residency, among e-residents, there were quite a lot of digital nomads popping up. Many of them starting their own companies, mainly, as freelancers, solopreneurs. The whole solopreneur industry started to boom. We know that there were companies like Bolt, Estonian unicorn. Everybody knows Uber also, in the same field. This kind of industries got disrupted. They had solopreneurs giving services within this framework. For these people, e-residency was also an option. Then a lot of marketers who were traveling around, who found e-residency as a digital ID. You can do everything online. Whenever you have a company in your rucksack, essentially. So this was the next wave. And actually, just before COVID in 2018, we saw a really big boom, because what happened just shortly before that, we had Brexit referendum. There was a lot of talk about the UK leaving European Union. The entrepreneurs in the UK were in a complete loss. Like, they didn't know what was going to exactly happen. They had like solid business clients, business deals, this kind of business dealings working very smoothly with the EU, and suddenly they didn't know what was going to happen. So we had like kind of a high peak of UK companies finding Estonia and looking generally, into where to settle in Europe, finding also Estonia. So this kind of Brexit discussion brought us also into the forefront. And then when COVID happened, COVID accelerated actually the ongoing trend for remote working. And Estonians have been able to do all their government communications and voting online and everything remotely for many, many years. But suddenly, also with the COVID pandemics, it appeared that we are really well prepared for this kind of situation. It wasn't, of course, we all miss the human connection, but it wasn't something that really um, shocked the society, and e-residency became very relevant, especially I can tell you in Spain. This is when the for us the really big momentum among the Spanish nationals started. It was because you really suffered during the first wave of COVID. Also, Italy suffered a lot, we know. And in these countries that were in complete lockdown at the beginning, the people who couldn't, either they lost their job or they couldn't
No, we
do
couldn't get out
anything.
of the houses,
Yeah,
Jenny.
we couldn't get out of the house. They found e-residency. E-residency wasn't like helping a lot in terms of running your daily life, obviously for a foreigner or non-resident, but it could help you to offer your services in a situation where you didn't know what your job security actually will be, in the future, to start your own, offering your services to other clients, and do it while being in your own home. So yeah, it kind of it suddenly brought this whole topic of remote work, and that remote work can happen, and what are the tools that you need, what are the systems that you need. And also another thing is that how prepared are the governments in order to really, like, how prepared are they for this kind of situation where actually the physically, being physically available is not an option. We saw big organizations like European Parliament really struggling, because there are security measures in everybody's computers, regarding to their filing, stuff that they need to go through, that doesn't allow remote working. You
Mhm.
need to go to the certain internet network and do your stuff there. You can't do it from home. So yeah, the digital identity offers this security, or let's say how would I put it, it ensures on a certain way that your personal data is not violated, and you are you when you are accessing the system. So this is very important. It's kind of the security of all this.
Yes, it's the both the passkey and the gateway, let's say, at the same time. And actually, on the topic of global events and global trends that have impacted, let's say, or basically that the e-residency program found itself to be part of, I would say, I would call it this way. You mentioned Brexit, we mentioned COVID. You mentioned, for example, the 2018 as the year, no, when there has been an uptick in
Yes.
adoption from the UK. I would say I would add another element to that, which is the fact
Mhm.
that in 2017, just not even a full year before, because I think that it was after summer or something like this in 2017. But 2017 was the year of the first Tallinn Digital Summit, if I'm not wrong,
Yes.
which
Yes.
meant, and I was there, and something that I remember is that at the time I was working for the Estonia Briefing Center. And the interesting thing that I noticed was that a lot of people who were attending the Tallinn Digital Summit and were part of the delegations that were attending the summit, so whether they were government delegations or private sector delegations, they sort of already knew about the digital policies of Estonia. But there was a lot of interest in the specific program that was the youngest, let's say, of the digital policies of Estonia, which was exactly e-residency. So I clearly remember that there was quite a focus, let's say, on this program already back then while people were in Estonia. So even before there was the need to do things in a more location independent way, as it then turned out during COVID. This is basically simply to say that it's not like e residency had, let's say, a rising trend in membership or usage because some global events happened. But the nice thing is that it was already there. And for example,
It
when the
was. Yes.
COVID happened, it was already 5 years old. Speaking of age and years again, we spoke about so many nice things. What were some challenges and lessons learned, let's say?
Yes. Something that we have learned in e-residency is that I mean, first of all, my personal take is that what I have learned during these 5.5 years is that also as a citizen of Estonia who has been, following all this digital transformation because I was actually born during the Soviet time. So I have seen everything this happening. Is that the understanding of digital in different countries and in different kind of networks is very different. What some people understand, is digital is the access to the device. The device being available in, I don't know, in some government offices. I mean, we are talking about digital in Estonia in a completely different way. When digital is really serving the people, is really making things easier, not adding to the clutter and not adding to the bureaucracy, right? So, for us, really, I think the learning curve has been for the whole program how to explain ourselves. So, even the people understand us, even in the countries that have actually no concept of a digital identity, that are very skeptical about anything to do with their data, with actually, the government, different government agencies potentially being able to review their data, their data being somewhere where they can't control it. So we have, we have been learning how to speak about digital to really clarify that there are so many different ways of doing it and what we really mean when we are talking about government as a service, you know. So this is one thing. The second thing, what we have seen is that maybe also with e-residency, the Estonian startup sector has been really growing. We have 10 unicorns now, the highest number of unicorns per capita in the world. And what
Unicorns per year of life of e-residency, I would say as such.
it is actually a nice way of putting it. I didn't think
Yeah.
about it. And what we can really say like today is that we really want to target more startups, really because they understand the value, because the community in Estonia also need more diversity. And the community aspect of startup community in Estonia is unparalleled. It's very close knit. It's super good. There are good funding options. Everything is like very. I think is benefiting the founders that are trying to find the most nurturing ecosystem to plant their idea in, and actually to go global from the beginning. Right. So we are trying to attract more startups in our target countries that are Spain, Germany, and UK at the moment. And also we are very strong in Ukraine. I mean, we have a lot of common understanding in Ukraine as well. We are looking at this specific, we have defined the specific target countries where our value offer is the strongest and where also the organic growth is the strongest. So we have focused there. We have done a lot of risk work. So, for example, when we are talking about, there was also a crypto boom. A lot of countries in the world were unregulated. So together, Estonian government with e-residency, because a lot of interest came also through e-residency for creating this kind of companies. So this, for example, this industry got really well regulated in Estonia. I think we were the first country to properly regulate and license, so it's understandable for these companies how do they need to apply for a license and what are the criteria. So this got really regulated. So there have been like different momentums in e-residency's development that have been like really good in the sense that we have been really looking into the new industries. Right now we are looking into defense tech a little bit more, for example. There are AI companies that e-residents have created in Estonia. We are using AI tools in our team. So we are trying to be really on top of the technology and the future, kind of future technologies ourselves.
I would say that actually the development, also from my own point of view and my own point of observation, let's say, I would totally say that that's been quite a prerogative, or like quite an interesting and important, but also constant element of the residency program, which is, you mentioned now, for example, the crypto boom that there was at some time, and I remember how exactly in the time that there was particularly heightened, let's say, attention on the topic, which was around 2016, 2017, maybe even like 2015 already before. A lot of delegations, for example, that were coming to visit Estonia from Southeast Asia, or like from Japan or from other places, were slipping in the question there a little bit, saying, but Estonia is so digital, but so are you somehow, like, what's the situation with that sense? So e-residency has been relevant, paired with relevant topics, and at the same time relevant economic sectors throughout the past years. Because now that you mentioned AI and you mentioned also defense tech, those are arguably two of the main hot topics that we have in economics and politics at the moment, globally. Speaking of which, moments and momentum, what's next?
Yes, I mean, in some ways we are still a government organization. Things take a little bit time because, for significant changes, product changes, let's say, using new technology, this is what we want to do. We want to become a mobile e-residency in its true sense, in terms without losing any bit of our, the high security level that we currently have as a digital ID. We want to bring the possibility for our community to actually do the real remote verification. So the biometrics can be collected, and today's technological tools already allow it. That the biometrics can be collected through the mobile, and this would be the first step for making e-residency customer journey smoother, faster, and possibly even more secure if this is possible. So we know that when you travel between the countries, this is how it's identified, how you're verified. And yeah, we want to do this with the e-residency, and And the next step is then we are looking at also EU wallet and thinking if e-residency, which is on a card right now, could essentially be as a part of EU wallet for verification and for digital signature. So this is still a dream. I think that we have put the time for remote biometrics collection. Like we hope this can happen in 2027. But this is going to be a completely new, and we are working on it with other Estonian organizations. But this is going to be a completely new thing, around the globe if we can really do it. And but by the way, I mean, just as a comparison, we Estonians have been using our digital ID as an app already for at least 10 years, maybe more. But it's just it's not possible for foreigners, or for non-residents, something like this is not available. So yeah. So we are looking to really upgrade e-residency as a product a lot in next 5 years, let's say.
Katrin Vaga, thanks a lot for joining me today in this chat. I loved it, super interesting, and we really did a deep dive. So thanks a lot for today's conversation.
Thanks a lot.
Katrin is the head of global communications at e-Residency program, as we mentioned. And this is also it for today from your usual host, Federico. Tune into the next episode of the Digital Government Podcast of e-Governance Academy, and I will see you all here again.
This podcast is brought to you by the e-Governance Academy. Tune in next time.